If I look back over my life regarding my attitude about money, it's been an evolution. I can break it into three distinct segments. The first segment was I have no money, we're poor, and I have to get out of here because this isn't right. And all of the problems I believed that were caused when I was a kid were because we had no money. I later find out that's not the case. But at the time, I believed that the lack of money was the problem. And so I thought if I have enough money, I will have no problem. That's stupid, but I thought it. Okay. Then I got out from that negative environment, and I didn't get all the way out because I went away to college, but I was still in the same state as my parents, and I went to law school, and then I moved to Miami. So over that 10 to 15-year period, maybe even 20-year period, I began to see a pathway out for myself. And the first job that I had, I got a job making over $100,000 a year. Within the first year, they had raised me over $100,000 a year back in 1999. That was a lot of money, way more than I ever thought. It was more money than both my parents may put together. And so I was like, let me work real hard and make a lot of money. And then, of course, I got on this idea that I could start my own business, my own law firm, and make even more money, which I did. And I did not make more money, at least at first. And my best year, I had done better, but most years, it was about the same, which, by the way, says something really compelling about money. It is very much limited by your mindset. And that's one lesson I learned. During that period of time, I said, again, I'm still on this idea that I want to make a lot of money. And so I started studying the money people. So I was doing Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, although I don't even know if Tony Robbins would call himself a kind of a money person. He is a mindset person. But for example, Bob Proctor, he talks about you were born rich. I read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, probably over 100 times for sure. Listened to the tapes every night and started doing little affirmation cards. I remember the affirmation was, I'm so happy and grateful now that I make more than $1.2 million every year. And I never did that, right? That was something that just eluded me. It still wasn't working. Then I had a series of tragedies, which we could talk about another time. And then I had a spiritual conversion at that moment, right around the same time. And I shifted my mindset to not about making money, but about providing the very best service to the most people that I possibly can, valuable service. And when I did that, it was like gasoline on a match. Things exploded. So the first year was, I think we made $500,000. Second year was over $1.2 million. Ironically, this was 10 years after I started doing that affirmation about making $1.2 million. And then it doubled and doubled and doubled. And now we'll make probably over $60 million this year in gross revenue for a company. When I shifted my focus away from money being the target, I had completely obliterated any mindset of me being a poor person at that point. But it took probably 20 years to rewrite that. And I was carrying around index cards. And the other thing that happened at that same time where I had my spiritual conversion, instead of doing affirmations, I started asking myself questions. This is a big Tony Robbins thing. Your quality of your life is dictated by the questions you ask. I started asking myself, how would I act if I made more than $1 million a year? How would I act if I made more than $5 million? What does the CEO of a $10 million company look like? What does the CEO of a $25 million company look like? And right now I'm asking, what does the CEO of a $100 million company look like? Which is probably 2 or 3 years down the line. And so I'm asking that, and what does he look like? My health, how I spend my vacations, how much money I give back to charity, the kinds of activities I do at work. All of those things answer the question I ask myself. And so for me, when they talk about visualization, really the visualization is just, what does it look like when you're making $100 million a year? And I have a very clear picture of that, right? My brain answers that question, and that changes my mindset about money. I haven't thought I was poor in over 25 years, but there have been a lot of steps along the way of where my financial mindset has changed. And now, thankfully, I'm in the financial mindset that no matter what happens, I'll be able to earn this back because I see the path to be able to do it. Once you earn it once, it's a lot easier to earn it again. And a lot of the successful people who've lost it all will tell you that it's easier to re-earn it. But the person you have to be and the decision you have to make and the guts you've got to have to get there, it's a lifetime transformation to make that happen, especially starting out with all the bad stuff in your head about money. The biggest single shift that I had, and some people may not like this, I hope this is not a stumbling block to anyone, but the biggest thing that changed in my life between chasing money and really earning money and having a huge impact is my faith, right? So I grew up Catholic and didn't really have a strong Catholic faith. But when I had what I feel was an encounter with God, when I was sleeping on a couch, I had a fold-out table and a laptop computer. I had a picnic table I was eating on in my dining room. I couldn't really afford anything. I was financially wrecked. At the time, I personally was in $200 and something thousand in debt. My mortgage was in foreclosure or in default anyway. And I was losing everything. That's where I had my spiritual conversion. And at that moment, like I had these realizations. I'd been reading the Bible, but it wasn't coming together for me. But when I had this, what I feel was an encounter with God, I realized the truth of the Bible and that when we are children of a higher power, and we have everything we need in us, but we have to learn how to use it and follow certain principles. And we can create our life around us, that God wants us to speak good things into existence, and he wants us to make our lives better. And so we can be examples to other people. And that's what I personally believe. And when I realized that, and I started putting two and two together and realizing there's a lot of bad stuff I had to cut out of my life, there's a lot more good stuff I had to be doing, that's when things really changed. So when people tell me about financial crisis or whatever, you can do this anywhere. It's actually easier to do it when you've lost everything, because you've got nothing holding you back. So for me, it was very easy to walk away from that old lifestyle, drinking and parties and terrible stuff. I was going to end up dead. I was going to die. I was not in a healthy place. But my faith really came out at that moment where, again, make that choice. You got either go up or down. There's no third direction. And I just remembered that I know I was anointed for something big. And I made the choice to say, hey, listen, this is it. With God, I had this connection. So I tell people when they're starting their business, get your faith straight, because there are going to be a whole lot of attacks. And if you don't have faith in something bigger than yourself, you're really going to be in trouble. The Bible says this: don't build your house on sand, build it on a rock. The faith is the rock. So you've got to have faith, even if it's only faith in yourself and your ability to do something. You've got to have faith in that. I like faith in something bigger than us, because I do believe there's a galactic plan, a universal plan for all of us. And when you can channel into that, there's nothing that can stop you at that point. So I've talked about this before when I talk about, the Instagram influencers and that lifestyle. I will tell you, you cannot climb a ladder to success keeping one foot on the ground. And a lot of people want to keep their foot on the ground of what they have and then won't let go of that until they actually get the success. And the truth is, you have to let go of all of that in order to get the success. So that's one basic principle. I think Bob Proctor said that years ago, God rest his soul, that you can't climb a ladder keeping one foot on the ground. And so if you want to climb the ladder, there's a lot of things you have to let go of. The second point I'll talk about with that is people look at celebrity lifestyles. Now, this was during COVID. The bank was giving me a hard time about qualifying for it. And then I took my income from the previous year and I put it into one of those mortgage calculators to see how big of a house I could afford. And the house I could afford was like 4 times as expensive as the building I was buying. And I was like, why the hell is this bank giving me such a hard time, albeit during COVID? But at the same time, I could really afford 4 times that much. And I started thinking to myself, man, like my parents, we had like $35,000 house. I remember where I came from. And so I'm thinking, you know what, I can afford it. And so now I'm very comfortable at that level. We bought another office building. We bought a couple other investment properties. So I kind of know what I can afford. The trouble is my wife doesn't know. So my wife and I are partners in the business. She still has that how much money do we make mentality. She doesn't know how it is. We get calls from bankers and things, and they want to do certain things with us and get us to invest in things. And my wife, she doesn't understand it, that this is how we operate. We have family trusts now and things. It's a little crazy. But the first time I had a breakthrough where I'm like, okay, yeah, I've arrived, was when I did a mortgage calculator. And it was residential, it wasn't even commercial, but I did a mortgage calculator and I was like, oh my gosh, we could afford more house than we'd ever want. And when I realized that, I said, okay, maybe we actually make good money now and I can buy a few things. But I don't buy a bunch of watches either. I have maybe 2 or 3 nice watches. That's it. It's just not my thing. Cars either. Once I realized I could basically afford just about anything that I wanted, I've bought some things that were real luxury items, which, many of the things I don't have anymore. I sold them because the newness wears off. And then you realize you have, if it's a car, it's basically an asset that's going down in value, depreciating. So you don't want that. One big thing that's changed, this is probably the biggest thing that's changed. This is funny. The biggest thing that's changed is I don't look at the prices on menus. That sounds like such a small thing, but it's a big thing. You know how, because that's one thing I did for years. I'd order off the right side of the menu where the prices were. And I don't look at that anymore. If I want something, I'm going to get it. I don't really care what it costs. Now, that gets tested when I go to a Merced or something, the steakhouse where they have the gold leaf steaks. I bought one time. I didn't feel like it was worth the extra $1,000 or whatever for the steak. I'll never do it again, but I did it once. So that's changed. The kinds of vacations I take has changed. We give back a lot more to charity now. Thank God we're able to give back a lot and invest in other companies that hopefully will provide good service to people. We're getting ready to launch a staffing company. And we're doing a great job we're opening new offices for our law firms. People think, oh, you've got X million dollars in the bank. No, you don't. You keep the least amount of money in the bank and you put your money to work. And so it's not liquid. It's always there. I buy my wife nice presents. She'll get maybe a nice piece of jewelry every year, but not even a lot. We have all of our friends buy more than we do. Yeah, it's just not our thing. But I think also because we came up poor, that stuff just isn't. It's exciting the first time, and I'll buy a Louis Vuitton suitcase, but I travel with it to me now. It's not like I don't even like the Louis because I don't want to get it scratched. And it's funny because at a certain level, you want to put the money to work. I'm not even so worried about getting a great return for me per se. I'm thinking legacy now with my kids. I'm thinking about that. Like I want to start a not-for-profit and maybe have my kids ultimately serve on the board of a not-for-profit where we, a foundation. So that, to me, to be able to give back is so precious. So that's, one thing I'm thinking about, and we're looking at setting up now. I'm still just looking at impact. If I could help 1,000 more people, I want to do that. And I still want to get paid for that, but I'm able to do a little more flexibility. I'm also thinking about teaching more, right? So this is why I'm doing some of the work we're doing right now is I want to talk to people about these success principles. I believe these success principles are applicable to everybody. And in every industry, there are patterns that you can identify and accelerate your growth. But again, if you're just accelerating your growth so you can be rich, you're going to fail. It's going to happen. You're going to burn out. And if you don't fail, you're going to die young, and your kids are going to fight over the money, and they're going to be miserable. It's about how much impact, how much you can give back to the world. I believe we have a responsibility to everybody. I start with the people I'm in a relationship with, and have a lot of charities I'm connected with. That's so important that we give back. Because I look back when I was the kid, nobody was ever reaching out, hey, Greg, there's a better path for you. Nobody did that. So if we can help make a path to success available for kids over the path of drugs or alcohol, or a lot of these kids, I go talk to groups of kids in elementary schools, their path to success is music, sports, right? They don't even know you can run a business. Nobody knows about business. So I come in and I say, hey, listen, LeBron James is my neighbor, right? Drake was looking at the condo above mine. I'm just a lawyer. I have a big firm, but you guys think about this, that there are many other paths to success. I didn't even know about being a lawyer until after college or in college. So expose kids to this stuff to think, and there are people out there who do care and want to help you and want to uplift you and change the trajectory of your life. And hopefully we can reach a lot of kids, because my sister also didn't have somebody reaching out to her at a young age, and she took the other path and went down, died ultimately because of her drug addiction. It's interesting, when I started off my career as a lawyer, I wanted to be a great personal injury lawyer, a trial lawyer. And then, because in the path I saw to success at that level was a lot of guys who go out and they have these big trials and they win all this money. And that was it. Remember, this was back when I was motivated by money, or primarily motivated by money. I went through a spiritual conversion where I began to understand that my life is about impact for individuals. And I had to answer myself a question. I remember it was about 6 or 7 years ago, where I was confronted with the reality of I can either be a trial lawyer and work on really big trials, which I was a good trial lawyer. I was good. I wasn't great, but I was good. I could have maybe been great if I put the time into it, but I was good. But I was aligned with my wife, who was great at marketing. And I had to answer the question, am I going to be a trial lawyer, or am I going to run a firm? And I just did the analysis. I can have a bigger impact growing my firm and having many lawyers working with us who can help people, and many systems and processes that can have the best result for people. When I'm passionately committed to results for my clients and service to my clients, I'm passionately committed to giving back to the community. I can give back 100 times more as a big firm than I can just me as the individual trial lawyer. And when I finally came to terms with letting go of being the main guy in the courtroom, I look at this example. They have, Talia and Tommy Mottola. He's the producer and she's the singer. Like, my wife is the talent. She's on TV all the time. I'm on TV too, but my wife is really on TV all the time, and I'm the guy behind the scenes. And I saw that example and I was like, they're such a powerful couple, because he's the producer and he's actually having a huge impact. She's the talent. Everybody knows her. They know him because of her, really. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm okay being the guy who's in the office, who's making the tough calls, who's pushing and driving things. And if I do that, I can have maybe 20 people who are amazing trial lawyers who have this impact, and I can give them the support they need to go on to be the best trial lawyers they can be, and we can get them all cases, and we can have a huge impact. And so I just had this idea about scale. And when I finally made that decision, I was always good at systems and processes, and I should have been an industrial engineer, actually. I was always good at this. I was always good at seeing scale and patterns. I see patterns everywhere. I go into a business. When I go to a restaurant and I have a good service from a waiter, I ask them, what's your training program? And how were you trained? And how are you recruited to this job? And I go to hotels and I ask the same kind of questions. I always am looking for the patterns. What's the pattern? What's the pattern? What's the pattern here? For great client service and great results. I'd say probably 5 or 6 years ago, we continued our really radical growth trajectory. And I put all my energy into, I hired somebody to do the trial stuff. I put all my energy into building and scaling the firm, because I believe the biggest impact that I can have, and certainly my talents, the best talents that I have, are all geared towards developing others to be their very best and creating an organization that can support people and giving back. And so once I made that decision, that's when I just went to the whole next level. And I was already had decided that money is just the barometer of success. It's not the result. I was already on the way, but this was the final decision. I made a very clear decision a few years ago that this is what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I've been very happy since then. Hey, so if you like today's video, share, like, and subscribe.